Captain Daniel Cole was a soldier known for his bravery and discipline. He had fought many battles, but the mission he received one stormy night was unlike any other. His commander called him into a dark tent and handed him a small photograph of a girl named Amira, no older than 12. She had gone missing in a dense forest at the edge of the country. Villagers believed the forest was cursed and that evil spirits lived within its shadows. They said no one who entered ever returned alive. Daniel was ordered to rescue her at all costs. Though he was fearless, he noticed how the commander avoided his eyes, as if he himself feared speaking of that place. Daniel accepted the mission with a salute. In his heart, he believed there must be a logical reason behind the girl's disappearance. Maybe rebels had taken her, or perhaps she had wandered off and lost her way. He did not believe in ghosts, curses, or evil spirits. For him, fear was an enemy to be defeated. When Daniel reached the edge of the forest, the villagers gathered around him. Old women clutched their beads, whispering prayers. Men shook their heads and told him to turn back. They said the forest was alive, that it swallowed people whole. They warned him that once he crossed the first line of trees, no weapon would protect him. Daniel only tightened his grip on his rifle. "I am a soldier," he said firmly. "I fight enemies, not shadows." As the sun began to set, Daniel stepped into the forest. The air grew colder, heavier. The trees were twisted and tall, their branches covering the moonlight. Behind him, the villagers watched in silence, some even crying, as if they had already buried him. But Daniel walked forward with steady steps, unaware that with each move, he was entering a world where death and nightmare waited for him. The moment Captain Daniel Cole crossed into the forest, the atmosphere shifted. The warm night air turned icy, and a heavy silence replaced the usual sounds of crickets and night birds. His boots sank into damp soil, and each step echoed louder than it should have, as if the forest wanted him to hear his own fear. Daniel kept his rifle close and switched on his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, but seemed weaker under the thick canopy. The trees were ancient, their bark rough and scarred. Strange symbols were carved deep into their trunks, shapes that looked like circles, spirals, and human faces twisted in pain. He touched one with his gloved hand, and for a moment, he thought the wood was warm, as if alive. The deeper he went, the more unnatural the forest became. The air felt heavier, almost choking. Mist curled between the trees, moving as if it had a will of its own. His radio crackled on his belt, voices breaking in and out, but when he spoke into it, there was no reply. Soon, the radio fell completely silent. He was cut off. A faint sound drifted through the trees, a whisper. At first, Daniel thought it was the wind, but the words became clearer. His name. Daniel. The voice was soft, almost childlike, as if calling for help. His heartbeat quickened, but he steadied himself. "Focus," he whispered. "The girl is somewhere ahead." Suddenly, his flashlight flickered. In the brief moment of darkness, he saw movement in the corner of his eye. A shadow darted between the trees, too fast to be human. He raised his rifle, scanning the darkness. Nothing. Only silence. The forest was not just trees and earth. It was watching him, breathing with him, waiting for him to make a mistake. And Daniel knew then, This mission was not going to be as simple as he believed. Captain Daniel Cole kept moving carefully, his rifle raised and his senses sharp. The forest was strangely alive, every shadow shifting as if it carried a hidden secret. His ears caught something, a faint, muffled cry. It was the voice of a little girl. "Help me, please." Daniel froze, his pulse quickening. Could it be Amira? He adjusted his flashlight and followed the sound through the trees. The crying grew louder, guiding him deeper into the forest. His boots crushed dead leaves, and every step seemed to echo unnaturally. At last, he reached a small clearing. His light fell upon a figure sitting against a tree. It was the size of a child. "Amira?" Daniel called softly. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it tilted its head in a strange, jerky motion. Daniel stepped closer. That's when he saw it clearly. It wasn't a girl. The body was made of branches, mud, and broken bones, tied together with red strings. A hollow skull rested where the face should have been, and from its open mouth came the voice of the crying girl. Daniel's training told him to fire, but his hands trembled. He aimed his rifle, finger pressing the trigger. The creature twitched, then suddenly stood on its thin legs. Its limbs cracked like dry wood as it leaned forward, staring at him with empty sockets. Before he could shoot, the figure collapsed into ashes, vanishing into the cold wind. The crying stopped instantly, leaving the forest in deadly silence. Daniel's breath came fast. His soldier's mind searched for logic, but none existed. "It's a trick," he whispered to himself, gripping his weapon tighter. Just a trick. But deep down, he knew the truth. This forest was alive, and it wanted to play with him. What he saw wasn't a rebel trap or a lost child. It was something much older. Something that could use fear itself as a weapon. And now it knew his name. Daniel forced himself to keep moving, though his body was tense and his breathing heavy. The forest had already shown him that it was no ordinary place, yet he could not turn back. Somewhere ahead, Amira was waiting or suffering. As he walked, he began to notice small objects scattered along the path. At first, it was just a single shoe. Then a broken doll, its head missing. Then more toys appeared, tiny wooden horses, marbles, a child's torn dress, and even a rusted bicycle lying sideways in the dirt. They looked old, left here for years, yet each one seemed freshly placed, as if waiting for him. Daniel stopped, scanning the darkness. "Amira," he called out. His voice came back to him in a whisper, repeated again and again by the trees until it no longer sounded like his own voice. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and he heard it, the faint ringing of bells. The sound came from every direction, soft at first, but rising quickly, until the forest seemed to throb with it. Then he saw them. Children. Dozens of them. Their small figures stood among the trees, pale and ghostly, their eyes hollow black holes. They held the toys he had seen scattered on the ground. Slowly, they began to walk toward him, their movements stiff, their lips whispering his name in unison. "Daniel. Daniel." He lifted his rifle, aiming, but his hands shook. These weren't enemies he could fight. His training was useless here. The children circled him, their whispers louder, almost chanting now. He felt his mind slipping, as if they were pulling him into their nightmare. At the last second, he fired a shot into the ground. The thunder of the gun shattered the silence, and the children vanished instantly, leaving only mist and the smell of gunpowder. Daniel's heart pounded. He had survived this test, but he knew something darker was coming. This forest was not just haunted, it was hungry. And it wanted him to stay. Daniel pushed forward, his heart still racing from the encounter with the ghostly children. His flashlight beam shook in his hand, cutting through the mist. Every instinct told him to run, to leave this cursed place behind, but his duty was stronger than fear. He could not fail. Somewhere in this nightmare, Amira was waiting. After what felt like hours, the forest opened into a wide clearing. At the center stood a massive dead tree, black and twisted, its branches reaching out like claws. Beneath it, Daniel's light caught a figure. A girl. "Amira," he shouted, running forward. The girl was tied against the trunk with thick vines, her skin pale, her clothes torn. Her lips trembled, and her eyes filled with tears when she saw him. "Please, help me," she whispered weakly. "It's coming." Daniel quickly knelt beside her, checking for injuries. She was cold but alive. He pulled his combat knife and began cutting the vines that held her. The more he cut, the tighter the remaining vines seemed to grow, as if the tree itself refused to let her go. "Stay still," he told her firmly. "I'm getting you out of here." But before he could finish, the ground beneath them rumbled. The earth split open, and from the crack rose something monstrous. A massive figure, taller than the trees, made of roots, soil, and bones. Its hollow face glowed with red fire, and its voice shook the air like thunder. Amira screamed, clinging to Daniel. "That's it. That's what took me." Daniel raised his rifle and fired. The bullets tore through its body, but did nothing. It was not flesh, but living darkness. The creature's burning eyes fixed on him, and its voice rumbled through the forest. "She stays, forever." Daniel gritted his teeth, placing himself between the girl and the monster. He had fought men before, but now he realized he was standing against something beyond human understanding, an ancient spirit of the forest itself. The ground shook as the monstrous spirit rose higher, its body twisting with roots and chains that clattered like bones. Its massive arms reached for Amira, who cried out in terror. Daniel stood firm, rifle in hand, even though deep inside he knew bullets would not be enough. "Stay behind me," he shouted, pulling the trigger. The shots echoed through the night, each bullet tearing into the creature's chest. But the holes closed instantly, the spirit's body healing like flowing mud. The monster only laughed, a deep rumble that made the trees tremble. The creature swung its arm, and Daniel was thrown back against the roots of the dead tree. His ribs ached, but he forced himself up. He pulled a grenade from his belt, yanked the pin, and hurled it. The explosion lit the clearing with fire, scattering dirt and branches. For a moment, the creature stumbled, its burning eyes dimming. Daniel seized the chance. He rushed to Amira, cutting the last of the cursed vines with his combat knife. The vines hissed and bled black sap as they snapped apart. Amira fell into his arms, shaking with fear. But the monster was not finished. It rose again, even angrier, its voice booming like thunder. "She belongs to the forest," it roared. Roots shot from the ground, wrapping around Amira's legs, trying to drag her back. "No," Daniel roared, slashing the roots with his knife. His hands bled from the struggle, but he didn't stop. Desperation gave him strength. With his free hand, he grabbed a flare from his pack, lit it, and thrust it into the roots. Fire spread quickly, circling them in a ring of flames. The spirit howled, thrashing wildly, unable to cross the fire. The flames grew higher, forcing the monster to retreat into the darkness of the trees. Daniel held Amira close, both of them trembling, both barely alive. He had won this round, but the forest was far from defeated. The forest grew strangely quiet after the battle. The flames Daniel had lit still flickered around the clearing, burning low but steady, keeping the darkness at bay. The monstrous spirit had vanished, but Daniel knew it wasn't destroyed, only pushed back. He could feel its presence still watching, waiting for another chance. Amira clung to his arm as he lifted her to her feet. "It's over," he told her softly, though he wasn't sure he believed it. She was trembling, her face pale, but her eyes showed a strange strength, as if she had endured more than any child ever should. Step by step, Daniel guided her out of the clearing. The path seemed endless, twisting deeper instead of leading out. Shadows flickered at the edges of his vision, but none dared cross the fading firelight that clung to him. The forest groaned like a living thing, angry that its prisoner was being stolen away. Finally, after hours of walking, the dark trees began to thin. A faint light appeared in the distance, the pale glow of dawn. Daniel pushed harder, carrying Amira when her legs grew too weak. At last, they stumbled out of the forest and into open land. The villagers were waiting. Some gasped, others fell to their knees, amazed that the soldier and the girl had returned alive. Old women cried, whispering prayers of thanks. But Daniel noticed something unsettling. No one dared to come too close to Amira. He turned to her, brushing the dirt from her face. "You're safe now," he said gently. She nodded, but when she looked up at him, his heart froze. For just a moment, her eyes glowed faintly red like the spirit's fire. Daniel blinked, and the glow was gone. Amira smiled softly, but something in that smile was not the same. The forest might have released her body, but had it released her soul? As the sun rose, Daniel realized his mission was not truly finished. The curse had followed them out. And this was only the beginning. The soldier thought he had won. He believed the girl was free, that the nightmare was over. But the forest does not release its prey so easily. It takes something every time. And sometimes, what it takes cannot be seen until it is too late. When Captain Daniel Cole looked into Amira's eyes, he saw a shadow that did not belong to her. A fire that whispered of the spirit's curse. He saved her body, yes, but her soul? That question remained. Some say Daniel never rested again. He kept watch over Amira, knowing one day the forest would come calling. Others say the girl herself was no longer truly Amira. She was the forest in disguise, walking among the living. And so the story of the cursed forest spread through the villages. A warning whispered at night, "Do not follow the cries in the dark. Do not answer the voices. For the forest does not give back what it takes." The mission was complete, but the horror had only just begun.